Welcome everyone to my chess stream here on lichess and Twitch. This is International Master William Paschall. We are doing our Monday Blitz and Classical stream. This consists of games with viewers between like 5 and 8 minutes with a small increment ranging from 3 to 5 seconds depending on the length of the game. If you want to play a longer classical game like 8 minutes, then we can make the increment just 3 seconds for the faster games. For the 5-minute games, increments down around 3 seconds, or as long as 5 seconds. Excuse me. 5 seconds are good. Just making sure the broadcasting software is good to go here. It looks like I've had some problems with lag with my internet connection, and I'm not really sure, when it's really problematic and not. It looks like it's okay now, but I don't want to have to restart the stream in the middle of the stream. It would be better to restart it now if I have to restart it, but it looks okay at the moment. So go ahead and get started. Yesterday I did a simul here on lichess. I was just looking over one of the games. I get into really bad time pressure playing 20 players, sometimes 25, and yesterday was no exception. Number of games I had to kind of like agree to repetition of position or offer draws because I didn't have enough time. So I was sorry. I'm sorry to see those games end prematurely, but it was necessary. So just looking at one of those, we are going to get started. If I don't have any challenges, it's Monday. I guess everybody's still asleep. I'm going to go to the well and dig up it. We got Etat Soir here. All right, Etat Soir, we will get started with you. Strong opponent for my first game. He's 2083, but he's played me very toughly. Even his score feels like it's less than it probably should be. He's got 1.5 out of what, 8 or 9? I guess that's 9. Feels like he should have a better score. I feel like I've lost to him several times, but we're gonna get started here. He's playing e4 as well, or just d4? Now I'm not remembering. I need some ginkgo biloba. If you guys want to send me some, having problems with my memory. All right, we just woke up an hour ago, so a little over an hour ago. Vashon Chess, that's you. Infinite Flash Chess is here. Crush them all. Yesterday in a tournament game against a 2200 player, I played the King's Indian and walked into a prepared variation. My King's Indian theoretical knowledge is a little bit out of date. I haven't really hit the books lately, but I like playing the King's Indian. It's a good opening to try to play for a win. And the other stuff I play is very stable in Hungarian, I wanted to say, but this is an English stream, so we'll say stable. Bishop to b4 is the Bogo Indian. Now, all right, knight d2. Taking a deep breath and castling. b6, I think, is probably the most solid response for black. I used to play d5 a lot, but d5 leads to queen a4 check, knight c6, which is slightly better for white. Other variations are possible there too. He played g3. You don't see that too often. Maybe now b6 is like a good transposition. It gives white fewer options than playing b6 on the previous move. Lou Barlow's back. Lou Barlow's sold, at least. Well, yeah, I mean, I wanted to play a variation that's keeping the position kind of complicated. Bishop b4 check, knight d2, I think is white's more aggressive move against the Bogo. Not just trading pieces with bishop d2. But if he's not careful, he just ends up in a kind of passive Catalan with his knight on d2. Not that dangerous, I would say. I'm not really sure. I mean, d5 looks like the normal move here. Obviously, we could exchange on d2, but I'm not really enthused about that. You know, it's not very exciting. So we're going to go into a kind of Queen's Gambit sort of position, basically thinking that it's a Catalan where his knight's not on a great square. On the downside, our bishop is also sort of in a very awkward position. Can't try anything tricky to like trap my bishop with c5 because I'll be able to exchange it off. So nothing like that, but it's a trade-off. White has a passive knight. We have a bishop that's misplaced on b4. So I'm sure you'll find some games in the database with this position. Why did you choose the username Sparkle Horse? Yeah, we had the same question last night. Sparkle Horse is the name of an indie rock group, I would say, but it was really basically one guy. But he committed suicide. This is kind of like my tribute to his music. All right, so a3, we're going back. I didn't plan, you know, to make a kind of business when I was making my names of things online. But now we're doing chess full time, and a lot of people are asking me, why don't you have like the same name across the board on different chess sites and whatnot? And well, I just don't really plan things out, and just like to have fun names. So my names are different everywhere. If you look at poker sites, chess sites, YouTube, my email, Queen c2, good move. a3. He could also play b4, but there are two options here, I guess. Knight bd7 or c5 right away. c5 leaves me with hanging pawns. It's a very aggressive approach. I think it's okay. Maybe playing c5 before he has a chance to go with b4 is not a bad idea here. It's not a pawn structure I play very much. I could actually recapture with the bishop on c5 if I'm really paranoid about having a hanging pawn structure. You could maybe take back with the bishop on c5. I don't think it's very aggressive. So he took on c5 right away. It wasn't forced, but capture's probably the safer move. If I take with the bishop, he plays b4 with tempo. So I'm going to take with the pawn. It's more aggressive, also higher risk. We're imbalancing the pawn structure. Plays knight e5, but I don't think that white really has anything here. Black really doesn't have anything either. Black is black and white is white. So we're more or less happy to equalize. You won't find me in this kind of pawn structure that often. I usually try to avoid them, this hanging pawns. This is not, however, the most aggressive looking setup for white in the world, so. But I've been impressed by Tatsuar. He's played very, very solidly in the games against me. I think his score doesn't reflect how well he's played. Bong, bang, bing. Unless you have quite an obscure name, it'll be hard to get it across the board on all sites anyway. Yeah, well, exactly. Chess Network, King Crusher. That's alright. I like to be in a class of my own. I don't have to market my name. Knight on bd7. Yeah, not an exciting position. As I said earlier, I'm playing the King's Indian mostly when I'm playing for a win with black. And I'm playing Bogo Indian, Nimzo Indian, Queen's Indian type of stuff when I'm black, and I'm content to have a solid position, and basically like a draw would be okay. So that's my fundamental repertoire against d4. King's Indian or modern defense type of stuff for a win, and the more solid Nimzo, Queen's Indian, Bogo Indian with black if I'm content with equality. Obviously the King's Indian is higher risk. But we have some center here. I mean, you might argue that black is better now with the pawn center. It's like a Grunfeld with colors reversed. At this point, we have the central majority, and we're trading off this Grunfeld bishop. White's play has kind of turned it into a sort of hyper-modern approach for White, where he's giving me the center. He played 94 now. Take f5. It's almost like identical to some lines that I play in the Grunfeld with White. Structurally, we try to get this big center and maybe get a big passed pawn in the middle of the board. Exchanging on e4 could have been possible as well. I could have exchanged on e4 and played f5 then. That actually might have been better. I didn't even think about it. I normally like my queen on b7. It's active along the long diagonal, active along the b file, but there's an argument for taking on e4 here. Blue Crow's here. Haven't seen you in a while, Blue Crow. How much of a metagame takes place when you stream? When do you announce moves? Do you often save moves? Not too often. Not too often, Lubar. I'm pretty face value. There are certain opponents who I think are maybe stronger. I might kind of hide things if I'm in a really competitive mood against like sort of special opponents. But you know, some game I might really want to win. But for the most part, I'm pretty much face up with yeah. Bishop f4, which makes me really feel stupid about not exchanging on e4. I think that would have solved the problem of this. He's stopping rook b8, and he's stopping e5. But all right, bishop f6, skewering d4, threatening e5. And if he goes bishop d6, we go rook c8, and we're sort of x-raying his queen, so b4 might not be that hospitable. I mean, that could be the variation we're looking at here. Blue Crow said, I don't think he keeps so much to himself, right? Do you think Chess Network King Crusher are only relevant or popular because they were the first chess YouTubers? If they restarted their channels now from scratch, how popular would they become? They wouldn't become as popular. They put a lot of time into it. They started when, you know, there weren't as many people streaming. But not to take everything away from them, they have kind of like a popularity due to their styles. So it's not only because that they started early. I mean, I think that they have their own personalities, and I respect that. And a lot of people, it's more than just about how strong a player you are. You know, obviously, you know, a 2700 player with no personality is not going to be as fun to watch as like a 2200 player with a lot of personality. So I think that, you know, we give them some credit and respect the fact that they put a lot of work in. And I'm not like a personal fan of those guys, but at the same time, I think I need to respect what they've done. So not just to be politically correct, but I mean, honestly, I mean, you know, personality is very important here. So okay, sometimes King Crusher gets kind of negative, but so do I. You know, I get paranoid. People are like cheating with computers, and sometimes I get angry about it. But anyway, you know, there's room for everyone. Rook on a to b1. I was kind of expecting b4 there. I mean, just in time, you know. But he had d3 on his mind. Maybe he could sack an exchange. He was on rook a1, d3. Yeah, I don't know about sacking the exchange. He gets a strong bishop and a pawn, but he's still probably fighting an uphill battle there. All right, I think we're just clearly better now. Queen d7. We need to choose the right square, I guess. Defending f5. And we can almost trap his bishop. Maybe we could. Did we just miss a bishop trap? He plays b4, c takes b, a takes b, queen d7. Anyway. Now it looks like this is Grunfeld dream position. But it's not going to win itself. It's not necessarily winning position. It's just better for black. There's a fair amount of simplification. I did not expect him to do that, but maybe he's right. Wow. All right. So the problem is here, I think, you know, he's leaving himself with that Isolani. It looks like a very, very serious... Looks like a very, very easy target, basically. He's got the B file. I've got this very powerful passed pawn. He's got the isolated pawn. It should be fairly easy for me to put pressure on c4, and he does have a little bit of counterplay with a B file. So what do? We want to... I mean, we could push our passed pawn too. e4 is not a bad move. Running out of time. I was thinking of doubling rooks. Probably a safe approach. But white is not necessarily lost here. a5, rook a6. a5 was good. Well, people were here before them and have left, so I guess it comes and goes. Do you think? Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really become aware of chess streaming until like probably Chess Network started. I mean, I started to notice YouTube videos at some point, maybe around 2007, 2000. I want to say around 2007, I probably really became aware of it. But I didn't, you know, really take it too seriously. I was working as a chess commentator for ICC, and I've done videos for years. So for me, it's just kind of a natural progression. I mean, I you know, unlike those guys, I really have done chess commentary well before, you know, they started their YouTube channel. So in a sense, I mean, you know, I've been doing this longer. I mean, in a different format, but I started like back in 2000 doing commentary, live commentary, audio commentary. So it's and making videos. In a sense, I've actually been around longer, just in a slightly different format. Now we can't take the pawn. Anyway, I wanted to get out of this diagonal. Get the king off the back rank. I was thinking about blockading here. Blockading with the bishop on c5. It has this nice diagonal. Tatsuar is a talented player. He's, I think, got a lot of potential. He's played me very, very tough. The score, as I said earlier, doesn't reflect the toughness of the games he's played against me. Do we have anything now? I can't blockade and attack the pawn at the same time. Let's see. Maybe rook c6. You might ask why. Well, I don't want anybody coming on any any square on my half of the board, basically. Rook a6, no rook a7, no rook a8. I'm also getting my rook off of the dark square where it can get attacked with bishop a5. Ultimately, we should be able to roll with like e4 and d3. Probably not a bad move here. We should have back rank threats against f2. His king is less safe than mine. I have good chances against c4. But e3 is possible as well. But he is keeping me busy. Bishop b6. Rook takes c4. That I didn't expect. I actually expected a different move. But queen a2 is pretty natural. He's been so cagey here. Everything's lined up. I think we're... Oh. Yeah, this would be better. Alright, man. Tough game, as usual. Very tough game. Blue Crow, Max 123, Constant Change, and Ghost Mind. Reminds me of a Blumenfeld Gambit. It's it reminds me of the Rook B1 variation of the modern Grunfeld with colors reversed. I've had a lot of games like that with white. Got the central majority against the queenside majority. This is a typical Grunfeld type of theme. Obviously, he lost a pawn eventually on the queenside, but he normally had like a queenside majority. He had a queenside majority against my... The central majority tends to be stronger in the middle game, like as it was here. Sometimes in the end game. And there's a book by John Watson, I think, or was it? No, I don't know. Was the Watson book on chess strategy, where I think he talks about this concept a little bit, by John Watson. What is it? Modern chess strategy or something he wrote years ago. It was a discussion about, basically the value of the central pawn majority in the middle game. Blue Crow is up 5-3. Guys, I'm playing unrated games, and anything between 5 and 8 minutes with a small increment. Blue Crow we haven't played in a while. Don't really recall your repertoire. I'm going to play my usual stuff. Demaro. I thought it said Dynamo. I need glasses, but I'm kind of like hedging on getting them. I don't want to feel old. I'm kind of in denial of the fact that I'm losing my eyesight. But sometimes it's hard to see the screen across the table there. Demaro, not Dynamo. Knight to c6. C takes d. And what's up, guys? I don't really have anything to... why did you leave the US for Hungary? This is actually the most popular question I get. The new one is, why are you called Sparkle Horse? Alright. No, leaving the US for chess. Originally for chess reasons. I went to play in Europe. If you're a professional chess player or aspiring to be a professional chess player, let me give you an example. Like, if you're in the United States and you live in Boston, and there's a tournament in like LA, you're gonna spend like $1,000 on travel and like expenses just to like fly across the country costs like $1 million. But in Europe, like next week I'm going to Prague. I mean, you can go from like one city to another by train or even airplane fairly cheap. So, and this has really been the case over the last 15 years or more. You can really travel in Europe much more easily than in the United States, much more cheaply. I think that for a chess professional, it just makes sense to like live in Europe rather than in the US. Plus, well, that's kind of the main thing. There's more tournaments in Europe than in the US. So to make a long story short, I moved to Hungary because it's much easier to be a aspiring chess pro here. But we got sidetracked with a lot of other stuff, so I didn't really play a lot of chess since 2010. Played sparingly, let's say, but I'm getting back into it full time. I first came to Hungary back in 96 and 97. I mean, in those days, it was really inexpensive to live here, anywhere in Eastern Europe, but especially in Hungary. And outside of a few small outlying events, I've enjoyed my time here in Hungary. So that was the story of why I came here. And in those days, prior to like 2007 or 2008, you had to have round robin norms for titles. So it's not like now where you can just make a Grandmaster norm in Swiss system tournaments. You had to have round robin tournaments. And there's a regular tradition of having these round robin tournaments here in Budapest. So that's why I particularly chose Budapest, because there's a regular tournament series every month. It's still ongoing, and that's not something you can find. It's not something you can find just anywhere. Every single month, there's like IM and GM tournaments in the same place. That's a very, very rare thing. Have you heard of the school FAMU in Prague? Crazy, no. It's a university. Secrets of Modern Chess Strategy by John Watson. Yeah, Railbird 80. I actually don't own that book, but I have like glanced at it and read some reviews. It is a good book, and there is a direct explanation of the strategy of my last game. Pucro is exchanging on c6. We do see this sometimes in the Sicilian. It's what he's doing, what White's doing here, it's kind of counter to fundamental strategy for like White in the Sicilian, basically. You're normally not exchanging on c6 because it helps Black to control the center. There are some exceptions, but I don't think that White, really has an advantage here. One thing is, like, for Black though, it's hard to decide what kind of pawn structure to adopt, to play e5 or d5, or just leave it the way it is. It's kind of tough. I was thinking this bishop on c8 is a problem. It is a thematic problem. I don't have a lot of time. Okay, this is a fast game, so I'm going to try to keep it simple. He's not making too many pawn weaknesses. He has played h4, so he's probably not going to castle kingside. I do see a lot of players who, don't move any pawns. It's kind of a modern strategy I think people pick up from playing computers. But in general, I mean, pawns are the soul of chess, right? So, I don't know. I mean, knight c5 here, gone for his bishop. We're also, he's playing hope chess, like hoping I take here on g5. But if I don't take on g5, there's a question about the placement of his rook and queen. So, I'm not really interested in taking on g5. There is a kind of unpleasant tension, though. I don't want to play h6 necessarily, like weaken my king side. So we're stuck in this sort of limbo. I might eliminate his bishop at some point with knight takes b3. Black has a quite solid position. Even f6 is possible. Though I don't really want to do that unless I have to. So, okay. Yeah, I mean, we might end up doing f6 at some point. e5. Actually, now we're winning a pawn on g5 with check, but we'll end up dropping something eventually. I don't want to drop the pawn on d6. So I guess our f6 is on. It's a beautiful pawn structure. Two bishops will slowly work their way out. This one's going to be pretty passive for a while here, but I think we have the superior game because of the pawns and their lust to expand in the center. Again, central majority like last game. Bong Bang Bing, could you delay accepting my challenge for a little bit? Yeah. By the way, Bong Bang Bing, you know, you were lucky yesterday because that game I wanted to play on. I could have won a pawn. I was afraid of ghosts in the simul game there yesterday. Wow. So Plucro played this, sacking a piece. It looks interesting. But I don't know, man. I could play h6 then take. This is really strange. Is that bishop really ever going to get out? Weird situation. Yeah, but I'm just taking now. We're not going to let you open the H file. So he got a little bit how to express myself. His pieces got a little cluttered. This bishop is the key defensive piece in the position. All right, there is still a glimmer of hope for Mr. Plucro. Got to be a little bit careful here. Right. Does it matter which way I take this? Yeah, e6. e6 falls. Maybe I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter which way I take. I'm up clear piece. It's pretty bad. This bishop is... He's still jonesing to get out, but the rook can come across. The queen's bishop is the piece that can remain on its original square the longest. This is some little thing that I learned from a very strong Russian, actually not Russian, Belarusian friend of mine. He was an old FIDE master, Vladimir Rubenchik. He was teaching me when I was coming up informally that the queen bishop can really stay on its original square for a long time. Surprised I played the repetition. I know I didn't want to Bong Bang Bing, but I was like just playing a number of games and I figured I was being kind of paranoid about... I wanted to play bishop takes g6 in our simul game yesterday, but I started to see ghosts. Guys, every Sunday I do a simul. This week I'm going away on Friday, so I won't be doing one. But usually every Sunday I do a simul. I won't be doing any simuls for a while because I'm going to be away and I won't be back to the week before Christmas. Alright, max 1, 2, 3. I'm going to wait on that. Constant change, 8 plus 3. So guys, I'm streaming today, tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday, but Friday I'm leaving for Prague. Somebody was just asking me about Prague. Or about a school in Prague, ironically. So I'm going to be in Prague playing poker, basically, from the 9th to the 19th. And then I'm going to come back on the 19th and start streaming the week before Christmas here. 23rd through the 23rd, I think. Constant change, let's mix it up a little bit. I played a classical Sicilian. Sometimes I play the dragon, accelerated dragon. Thanks, Vico. It's actually a nice compliment. I want you guys to see me in slow motion. C takes d4. Did I ever consider a career outside of chess? Infinite flash chess. Yeah, modeling. Chess modeling. I'm like Alexander Kostyniuk for men. Maybe chess, maybe a comedian would be better. If I had it to do over again, I'd probably go back to graduate school and study something useful. I don't know where our moderator is. He's not here to root out the trolls. He was actually here yesterday during our simul, but he didn't play in the simul. I hope I didn't hurt his feelings. I didn't see him in the challenge list yesterday. I'm just kidding. Jeroen, our moderator, is usually here very faithfully, but he must have something this morning. We got all kinds of good people here today. Upstanding citizens. So we had the same game against you, Constant Change, the other day, right? I played a different approach, though. I played d6 and like it was a normal dragon. But I guess, on paper, we're supposed to play d5. I don't remember my move order against Constant Change. We played a game like this last week, where I played d6. Newberger, I can mod Newberger. Newberger, I noticed that your account on lichess was closed. Why did you do that, man? You wanted to make a new account? Knight takes c6. B takes c6. You want people to start preparing for your openings, to create a new account. Actually, yesterday I was playing a team match here in Budapest, and I thought I was playing my friend Attila Sebe, but when I arrived, there was this guy who's like 2200 there instead of him, and the dude was able to like totally prepare for me, but I had no idea I was playing him. So it was really a great situation. He probably like all night, like prepared like exactly what opening he would play against the King's Indian, against the Nimzo, and so I'm like there like clueless, not knowing even what he plays or anything. It was really cool. I ended up getting a really bad position and like drawing against a guy who was almost 200 points lower. The Gladys Troll, what? Pizza, Gladys Troll, all you think about is food. You said you were eating pizza and beer yesterday. Pawn takes pawn. Even queen takes is probably okay for black. No problem. That's got to be like equal. It's in fact maybe even a safer move, but I don't want to end up in this like queen takes. Actually, what does he play? After queen takes, bishop f3. Constant Change needs a little bit of a like souped up opening repertoire. He's not a bad player, but he's not playing very sharp and dangerous variations. I think what he needs is more teeth in his opening repertoire. Well, I don't think he's going to castle queenside after playing c3. So here we are again with the queen, with the central majority. It seems to be the theme of the day. Black's slightly better, very slightly better. I mean, I wouldn't want to have to beat like a GM in this position, but most GMs don't play this kind of harmless line. This is a kind of reasonable line, I guess, with white if you want to draw. It's not really bad. I don't think white's seriously worse, and it's very simplified. But as far as like trying to win, I wouldn't recommend playing this with white. Now e5 is tempting, but it could also get me like a little bit overextended. If I play e5, he has several options. f4, or maybe f4, d4 I could play. Ooh. Yeah, but even there he can blockade if I get an isolated pawn. So maybe it's a threat for him to play f4 here. We could play e5, f4, f6, but it's sort of gross. That's what I'm talking about by draw. I mean, white may just be able to blockade like the whole position. Like if you're playing Nimzovich, like the real Aaron Nimzovich, in this position you were black. I have to imagine like chances are Nimzovich versus the average grandmaster is going to be a draw in this position. Even if black has some symbolic advantage with the central majority here, I don't think that's enough. Maybe it's safer not to play e5 though. Actually, e5, bishop, f3, e4. He goes back and he blockades. e5's tough. I mean, I'm worried about my d5 pawn becoming like overextended. If I don't play e5 though, white plays f4 anyway. I've got to watch this stupid a pawn all the time. Babysitting that pawn. I could push it to a5, but first priority is probably keeping d5 protected. Alright, well, e5 is okay. As Neuberger said, Plucro, e5 is probably, well, it's okay, but I don't think we have to commit to it. We might be able to play just with the option to play e5 later. Though f4, we'll probably have to play f6, and then it's going to get harder. But I don't think that white has, I'm not sure black's really better here. I mean, I think it's kind of an illusion. And that's one of the problems, by the way, guys. If you play the Accelerated Dragon, any Accelerated Dragon book is going to say, like, oh yeah, you just equalize with d5, any of these kind of situations. That's fine and good, but objectively, if you want to win a game, these simplifying lines that quote-unquote equalize with black, where you play d5, in many cases just trade a lot of pieces. So there's almost always one of these situations where I'm often like questioning myself, maybe it would be better not to equalize, because equalizing just like trades two sets of minor pieces. It makes it much easier for a competent player to like draw a master strength player. Neuberger said, I had this position with a tempo less in a real game and couldn't play e5 because bishop f3 would force e4. Exactly. That's the problem here. He can play, you know. Yeah, he can play like that. Maybe we can calculate something, but I think this is a draw. I mean, I'm looking at weird lines like bishop f3, d4, bishop takes b7, pawn takes e3 type of stuff, maybe to reach opposite colored bishop position. And e4 is bad because our pawn gets overextended. I don't think we have anything here. But I think the lesson to be learned from this is a lesson that I've already learned. Don't play d5 against lower rated players because you're just trading a lot of pieces. And that's not the way to beat weaker players. You want to keep some play in the position. If you have to outplay them in a king and pawn ending, then you try. But you try everything you can first. You know, the last resort is like grinding people down in an ending. You should probably take every chance you can get if you want to win against low-rated opposition. That means like trying to beat them in the opening, try to beat them in the middle game, trying to beat them in the end game. Every chance you get, basically. Queen e7 walks into like b4 type ideas, but queen e7 might be okay. I don't think b4 is a great move for white. Deciding between there or c7. But I think that Neuberger's suggestion is right. He should play bishop f3. And also f4. The thing that constant change is risking here, like if he does nothing indefinitely, I'll eventually latch on to something here. Maybe like just a strong pass pawn with d4 at some point. So he can't, you know, he can't really do nothing forever. Like he doesn't want to play too passively. That's what I'm trying to say. Because if you play passively, bad things happen. And it's just a general truth in chess. True for a lot of black lines. Carlson, Karyakin. Yeah, well, you can't have everything with black. Yeah, the Marazzi is a disaster. I had a Marazzi against a guy in Harkine last week or 2 weeks ago against this guy who was 2100 or 2075. He used to be 2300 like 20 years ago, but I mean, you know, trying to beat him in the Marazzi, like I'm 2375 at the moment, and I'm trying to beat a guy who's 300 points lower. In the Marazzi, it's very, very tough to beat anybody. It's so easy to play. So this is our third game where our advantage is based on central majority. I couldn't beat the guy. In fact, I even got a slightly worse position, trying to keep it complicated. Sometimes you have to do that against lower rated players, like willingly play slightly worse positions. Now we ended up choosing the wrong square for our queen, or what here? I don't know what to do. I have absolutely nothing in this position. I might not even be better. Maybe white's better because this is like a target on d5. h4, I think that's a little too ambitious. Maybe not a bad move. Should I play h6 or h5? h4 is risky. What do you have? Bishop takes h5 there? Wow. Bishop takes h5? Well, that would be fine. h6 is safer. Constant Change is a practical player. Look at the line he plays. I think he's fairly strong. I have outplayed him in endgame quite a bit. So a sharper opening repertoire and a little practice in the endgame, I think he'd be master strength. Rook d2. Oh man, this is just nothing. He's got no weaknesses. Queen back to e7 now. Attacking the pawn. I'm doing nothing. I'll play g5. This was a risky play. I mean, it seemed like white was trying to keep a draw in hand for much of this game, but now it feels like I don't have much time. Feels like white is playing for a win suddenly. Shifting directions. Maybe he's going to be rewarded. Ah, boy. This is very awkward. Probably losing a pawn here, at least. I'm very, very short of time. Maybe not. This A pawn. I didn't have time to calculate everything, but now he goes there. This is weak. If it wasn't for h5, I would say white was clearly better, but with that h5 pawn, he's got issues. My king would feel a whole lot safer if I get rid of the h5 pawn. Maybe I should just play e4. That will weaken my king. Queen d3. Queen d3. You're on my d pawn and the c pawn. Alright, well, we had to give you something. Now we're probably trying to hang on for dear life here, but it doesn't look real good. That's a good move. He's faster and stronger than me. This looks very gruesome. I don't remember him being over 2200. Was he 2200 before? Seems like a new high rating for Constant Change. He's got to be winning here. Queen c5. Maybe he was over 2200 before, I don't remember. He's got 1900 in bullet, 1900 in blitz, 2200 classical. That's actually pretty typical, I guess. A little surprising though, how fast he is and has those stats. You'd think he'd be much weaker in blitz and bullet. The way he's like blitzing me. Maybe we're hanging on now. probably drawn. Obviously, I was completely lost. He could have even promoted a second queen at one point, but I guess I had perpetual. I didn't even count this. Probably a draw. Maybe not. He's in the corner. He's in the square of the pawn there. If he had gone back or no, I could have boxed him out. Yeah. It's an endgame nightmare. Alright, man. I can't say good game because it was a bad game by me for sure. You messed it up at the end. You played the Ponziani over the board yesterday for fun. We tried knight g4 and Marazzi. Oh god. Roman Chichiashvili was trying to get me to play that years ago, but he had his own variation with we tried to make it work. Instead of going knight g4 and then knight takes d4 and knight back to e6 like Petrosian, Roman was insisting that we could play with a knight on c6 going back to c6, and it's just garbage for black. I lost to Gennady Zaychik once this game, and I was I never had any play. It's okay if you do Petrosian style with knight e6 blue crow, but Roman was trying to get me to play with knight going back to c6. Yeah, the knight g4 variation is okay. You have to play knight e6 and b6 and queen e5 and all that stuff for black, I guess. Max 123, is he ready? I mean, yeah, he's here. Bing bong, no. Maybe Bing Bong Bang isn't ready yet. He said to wait, so I feel bad now. Maybe I started too early. Well, we'll keep his place. Anyway, alright, so let me abort the game. He wasn't ready yet. Alright, so when he gets back, we're going to play Max 123. You have to re-challenge me. Constant change, you were very close. You're totally winning. Obviously, I played pretty indecisively in that game. But, it's a good lesson. Sometimes we forget what we've learned, and that's a case of me doing that. Basically, I know not to do d5 if I want to play for a win, but Ghostmine played the Scandinavian. Good game, constant change. Absolutely all the way to the very end. I thought h4 was pretty risky. Ended up working though. I don't think h4 was really necessarily right, but I certainly didn't punish it. Maybe not that bad though. I am pretty much on the defensive there, so I guess you can afford to make a risky weakening move. Yeah, bang bing bong. I will re-challenge you next game. I mean, if you challenge me, I'll accept. I wasn't sure if you were ready or not, man. This is a pretty weird line Ghostmine's playing. I don't know if this is even played. The queen on a5 is a bit weird, I would think. I'm not sure if it's too early to play knight e5, but generally speaking, black plays c6 in the Scandinavian to give the queen retreat squares. So I was taught that we're trying to trap that piece. Queen takes b2. Queen takes b2 9.1. What was queen takes b2? I don't remember playing that move now. Plus 9.1. You were up a queen at one point. Yeah, I mean, you have 2 pawns up and a queen ending. It's totally... Was it 2 pawns up? It's totally over. A good game, though. For you. Not for me. 95. Ghostmind's queen is pretty sketchy on a5. So it's not too late to play c6, I guess. Maybe that would even still transpose. Though the move order is pretty strange. He's played e6 fairly early here. Okay, now his queen, I'm not sure what it's doing. If we can trap it, but it's certainly pretty awkward. Yeah, this looks problematic. White at least is clearly better. Of course, White was totally winning last game. I was pretty demoralized to realizing that the opening was just a waste of time. Here I was looking at knight b5, but I'm not sure that it actually wins or something. He just goes queen c6. I mean, obviously we have a huge advantage, but I don't see a forced win. We also have knight e3, which leads to advantage to White, at the very least. Bishop f4 is interesting. Maybe that's best. His queen doesn't have anywhere to go to. I wonder if bishop f4 wins by force. The problem is that there's some lines where he could get 3 pieces for a queen, maybe? Maybe not. Probably not, right? I guess he's not going to get 3 pieces for a queen. This is why we normally play c6 in the Scandinavian. Even I've played the queen takes d5 Scandinavian occasionally. I usually play knight f6 though. I don't recommend that anymore. I mean, I did do some videos for chesslecture.com years ago, but that was like years ago, 6 or 7, 8 years ago, and honestly, a lot has changed since then. I mean, the computers are much stronger, people are better prepared, information is more readily available. These sort of dubious variations like the knight f6 Scandinavian, I think they've lost some of their value. You really have to be more correct now, I think. Everybody has more information. Everybody's playing better and better in the opening. Yesterday I played, for example, a game in the Nescafe Frappe attack of the Benko Gambit, which is the Zaitsev variation against the Benko, which means they play the Benko, you take on b5, and then when black goes a6, you play knight to c3, a takes b5, e4, b4, knight b5. That's pretty extreme, Ghostmind. King d8, it's kind of like from the frying pan into the fire. He's saving his queen, but at the cost of losing like a lot of other stuff. Probably not the solution. It would be better to sacrifice your queen for a couple pieces or something. Keep your position intact. But so this variation of the Benko I had, I think that it's like it was a great variation when computers weren't that strong, information wasn't that readily available 15 or 20 years ago. But my opponent just played this line that looks like it almost cast doubt on it altogether. So things that were once very unclear and interesting are slowly becoming kind of like extinct. G4. We had a more accurate move order. Ghostmind resigned. That was a quick one. Mahmoud 999. Actually, Bing Bong Bang is not re-challenging me. Are you ready? If re-challenge when I am. Wasn't ready. Okay, he's not ready yet. We're going to play Mahmoud. Mahmoud 999. Actually, I always say that I should play people who have established ratings. Mahmoud is established, but I didn't check. before I started the game. So good luck, Mahmoud. That's why you play c6 in the Scandinavian. Exactly. Thank you. There are some special variations. There was this weird guy from Ukraine, international master Alexander Reprintsev, and he was living in the U.S. and Washington, D.C. for a while, like 20 years ago. All my stories are for 20 years ago. But he was a specialist in this very obscure variations of different kind of strange lines. Reprintsev is now extinct, basically, because all of his openings are openings that I'm talking about, like that are kind of turned out for what they really are now. They were things you could get away with 20 years ago that you can't get away with anymore. Okay, I mean, if you're in a live tournament and people aren't cheating or something, I guess sometimes these weird openings still work. But Reprintsev used to play the Scandinavian with queen takes d5, knight c3, queen a5, and then like knight c6 right away, which blocks the queen, obviously. You can't play c6 if you play knight c6. But Reprintsev had some weird analysis, and this is like a strange offbeat variation. So there are like some obscure variations where you can try to not play c6 in the Scandinavian, but they're very few and far between and probably dubious. If you want to play the Scandinavian like Carlsen or like John Bartholomew or whatever, it's basically a Caro-Kann type of opening. Caro-Kann, Scandinavian, you could consider them to be kind of relatives in a way. There's a knight c6 line, right? That's what I'm talking about, Pukro. Reprintsev, he probably still plays on ICC. He's from like the Urals. I think he moved back to Ukraine or whatever. So c6, he plays some weird stuff. Once he played the Albin counter gambit against Alex Yermolinsky, got crushed in like 20 moves. I was thinking that's really a dumb idea. This ultra correct player like Yermolinsky is not the guy you want to play the Albin counter gambit against. d5, but that was his repertoire. I mean, he just played his repertoire against everybody. It didn't matter like who you were. He didn't take into consideration if you're like Emery Tate or Alex Yermolinsky. Yes, the pawn triangle. Okay. Once in the U.S. Championship, I lost to Dmitry Schneider. I played like b3 here. I've tried everything. Knight d2, b3. Well, we could go, knight c3, black could play f5. That's what Dmitry Schneider used to do. I mean, he didn't invent it, obviously, but that's okay, though. We'll play this. Then traditionally, they say the knight's not well placed in the stone wall. Okay, now Mahmoud is not trying to play the stone wall. I'm not real up to date with my Botvinnik variation, the Albin counter gambit repertoire. Reprintsev had very good endgame technique, and he was like tricky, but his opening repertoire was really, really bad. Okay, well, yeah, the Moscow variation is a problem. I don't have a good score with bishop h4, so we're gonna go back to our. I don't have a good score against this at all, actually. I lost to Ivan Sokolov, Filipov, and who else did I lose to? I lost to Novikov once. If you're named Av, then I've lost to you, probably. If you're a grandmaster with an OV at the end of your name, I have like a lifetime score of like 1 win against a random 2300 and like a whole bunch of losses against grandmasters. Bishop to b4 is not really a normal move, though. That's good to see. That's fine. The usual recipe is black keeps the bishops just back, maybe g6, bishop g7, knight d7 type of stuff. Bishop b4 doesn't really look like a great idea for black here, but I guess anything's possible. It's probably not that bad. It's not like white has a really aggressive setup. This is an issue. Queen b3. Queen b3, a5 is certainly playable. Against Novikov, I tried to play this line with, what was it? If anybody knows what happened to Igor Novikov, let me know, because he kind of dropped off the radar, and I never really understood what happened to that guy. He's like this 2650 GM who just sort of disappeared. This is not like something that usually happens every day. Like, people like that dedicated to chess don't usually just like quit, or, and I didn't hear he like died or something, so I don't understand where he went. But Queen b3 is a variation like outright after bishop takes f6, queen takes f6. You can play queen b3 right away. And once I lost to Igor Novikov in that, I think black plays like a5. So I guess subjectively bishop h4 is much more interesting than bishop takes f6, but there's a lot of sharp lines there to learn, and I never really bothered. I did lose one game once that left a bad taste in my mouth to a fairly weak master, like this Russian candidate master, who I'm supposed to be better than, but if I can't beat him, I figured I'm not going to play bishop h4 anymore. Queen e7. Well, I don't know what's going on here. I mean, if he plays like bishop a5, give me the bishop, whatever. The Moscow is so much fun. Well, I mean, obviously bishop h4 is sharper. But my problem with that position is that oftentimes the bishop, like on g3, or it just becomes like a bad piece for white. Plus you're sacrificing a pawn. But I think objectively, when white plays bishop takes f6, your opening advantage sort of goes out the window. It's a very safe move, but if we want to like prove anything, I think that objectively this has to work. I mean, if we can't play bishop h4, then... I mean, I don't think that bishop h4 even really existed in theory very much till Kasparov kind of renovated it. Bishop d6. So now white should have something. This starts to look like... You could even castle long here, I guess, and try to blast black. I'm not sure that's the soundest option. I don't have much development. e4 takes, knight takes e4. Not sure about that either. I mean, e4 takes, knight takes e4, bishop c7. Even that looks like it might be okay for black. Well, what to play? Castles queenside? I'm running out of time. Mahmoud is... Well, castling queenside is still on the table. I mean, it's not out of the question, even after e4. But I don't know. I don't know. Do we have anything here? We should, it seems like. Black's played strangely, but... I don't know. Ace, so a5, what? Excuse me, guys, I'm still suffering from a cold. Sometimes I'm gonna cough and sneeze, and it'll be fun. I'm pretty good though. We are streaming today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. We'll be leaving on Friday for more than a week, and I'll be back on the 20th of December. Bishop f4. This is getting a little bit... We're going a little too far now. Bishop f4 is probably just a concretely bad move. We could fianchetto our white-squared bishop, maybe. That would put some pressure on the long diagonal. Kind of inhibit black's development. Still, okay, this is crazy now. Bishop g5. That is a very bad square. He's losing control of e5. So c5 looks good. It's not game over, but black's position is pretty dubious now with the bishop on g5. Where do we go? Bishop c4, bishop d3, bishop e2, a lot of choices. I was going to fianchetto before. Now I'm having second thoughts. But we are running out of time. Alright, whatever. Whatever. We'll just fianchetto, castle, kingside, put the rooks in the center, and be better. This knight, bishop, whatever it is, it's badly placed on g5. Mahmud has strategically ruined his position. Weakness with f5, e5 square. Still, there's no forced win. I'm not even threatening a forced win in this position, but this weakening of e6 should be strategically decisive. Got knight e5. I mean, the square, this really, it wasn't that bad until f5. I guess black, the major mistake is not putting the bishop back on c7. I always try to play more goofy than my opponents. Instead of e4 g3 random h4 bishop h3. But how is bishop h3 like winning a piece? Alright, this is positionally overwhelming. I did have knight takes f5 there, but I'm not sure if it's even the best move. Maybe castling's just as good. He's not going to get out of this problem, basically. The monster knight on d6? Yuck. Yeah, he's just paralyzed. So Novikov he is not. I played 2 games with Novikov in this variation. The first time I lost with queen b3, and the second time I played like a very sound, solid sort of approach and managed to get a draw. But I've never beaten anyone really strong. I have drawn a bunch of games, lost some, and I beat one guy who was like a 2300 player. That's my record against the Moscow variation. It's pretty bad. I'm probably like -3 with white. Once I lost to Ivan Sokolov in the New York Open, the classic thing I did several times was just kind of like overextend my center. Knight takes c5 here. It's a trap. Rook takes e6, knight takes c5. Wait a minute, I just take on c8 first. It's like, it's awful to take that piece, man. I mean, it feels like I made a very serious strategic mistake there. Maybe it was a serious mistake, actually. Maybe that's not even the best move at all. Darn. Yeah, I probably did something really bad. That was a really, really dubious exchange. Now I'm only a tiny bit better. It's ridiculous. Why would I take that bishop on c8? It was so lazy. I thought his white squares were collapsing, but it's not that bad for black here. I don't think I'm even better. It's probably like equal or something. Mahmud 1600 in blitz. He seems pretty good tactically. Positionally is another story. f4. Well, obviously I can't take with the queen. Maybe we should just... overprotect everything. This was not a great game. I'm just like totally crushing him, and now I'm in trouble. Or not winning, or having trouble converting. Knight takes c8 is just unbelievable mistake. This should be a win for me somehow. What am I doing? Does this actually work? Everything's protected. He gets 2 pieces for a rook, and I'm slightly better. Or he has that move too. This is like a joke. My God. Alright, never mind. On to another plan. He's 700, 2,000 in regular, but 1660 in blitz, but not too many blitz games. He mostly plays classical. That's pretty strong, 2,000. He's on the pawn, man, twice. Groveling for a draw here, I guess. Looks to be about equal. I'm lucky I'm not lost. I'm very close to losing. It's a pretty bad game by both sides. Rook c5. No idea what to do. Knight f4 now. Didn't expect that. I thought he was like trying to trade rooks. Now he is trading rooks. Okay, so it's pretty random. That is random. He's getting in some danger now. Like bishop check. Still like no mate. This is one of the worst games I've played in a long time. Honestly, both sides made a lot of mistakes. Do we win material finally? Knight takes c6. Winning a piece. Or the exchange. Man, this was a disaster. Okay, Mahmoud, again, I can't say good game. We both played really badly. Who's back? Why didn't I take the free pawn on f5 earlier? Well, I don't know. I was just thinking that the position was totally lost for black no matter what I do, and I'll just castle and have my pieces developed, you know, and take whatever pawns later, but I thought he was like basically in Zugzwang, and I didn't have to take it right away. That was my thinking, but probably you're right. I probably should take the pawn. Max123 is back. We're going to play him now. It got totally out of control. I was probably worse at some point. Max123. You might have forgot King h2, knight takes f2, knight d7 wins the rook. Zern Vlad, welcome, man. You were here for the simul last night. He had an interesting game against me in the simul, one of my many draws. Actually, Max123, you have that in common. Okay, well, I've played several Sicilians today, so let's play knight c6, something different. It's not Weird Wednesday. I do unusual opening stream on Wednesdays where I play stuff I don't normally play. But let's try this. We did have one of these last night against this guy Shaggy Britches. It was a position where I got this devastating spatial disadvantage, but then he overextended himself and lost. Scandinavian, well, white played knight f3 on move 2. d4 is the most critical. Scandinavian. Ninzovic, I mean to say. Crazy is here also. We got a lot of draws. Too many draws yesterday. Like half of them were naturally draws, and half of them were like draws where I offered draws in complicated positions. So just because I didn't want to lose on time. I had too many boards that were going at the same time when I started to get in time pressure, so it isn't easy playing the 20 games with a fairly fast time control. It doesn't seem fast if you're playing one board, but for me it is. It goes really fast. I'm basically playing each game in the simul as if it was like maybe like 7 minutes for the whole game. That's about how much time I have for each game, objectively. Altogether. Max123, I don't know who it was against, but last week I had one game in my stream, I think on Wednesday, which was pretty much identical to this. The late Grandmaster Tony Miles used to play this setup for black. And I think that white... What is it? The critical variation is probably like bishop g4, bishop e3 right away. I think you're supposed to play bishop e3 right away here. And then not play bishop e2. Bishop e2 is a little too conservative. You can play bishop e3 right away. And then the idea is like h3, bishop h5, g4, and queen e2. That's the sharpest way to play for white. And I have at least one game. Max, it wasn't against you that I had a game like this? Somebody had a game like that was identical to this against me. They also played the strange knight d2. And but the position was slightly different. I think like white was castled kingside, and I had already played bishop e7. So here I went d5 maybe too early. Last time I played bishop e7 right away, which is safer. This is more common. I went d5 maybe a little early here. Although I don't think knight d2 necessarily is dangerous for black. So if anybody hasn't done so, you can check out the uploads of my stream and also some other stuff that I've created on YouTube, video chess training on YouTube. If you can support the stream and the channel with a donation via PayPal, however small it might be, it is much appreciated. If everybody donated like $5 a year, I'd be able to do this all year round without worrying about anything. But if you can't donate, just come and join us and participate. That's good enough. Queen takes e2. We've got, last time, as I said, bishop e7 castles. And I spent a long time deliberating whether to take on e4 and try to take the pawn on d4. Here, situation is similar. Pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, knight takes knight, knight takes knight, knight takes d4, pawn, bishop takes d4, queen takes d4, queen b5 check. Queen b5 check. I don't have a choice, right? Queen d7 or c6? Queen d7 drops b7. It's actually interesting. Maybe I can do the same thing. It doesn't make that much difference. The computer found an interesting variation here for black that I didn't see in that slightly different position. It may not matter. I don't remember who it was against. It wasn't against you, was it, Max? Looks like a pawn. Well, it's not that simple because he has queen to b5 check. But was it against Max? Let me see. I don't know if I can tell from these positions. But what's that one? This was our simul game. This was a blitz game. It could have been this game. I don't remember this. You guys are so materialistic. Looks like a pawn. I mean, I'm pretty far behind in development here, so you have to be very careful about snapping pawns like this. If he castles, bishop e7 would actually transpose to the game from last week. But the computer found a tactical idea here. Like, I don't mean I'm using a computer now, but this is identical to last week's game. Just to the slight difference of bishop e7 and castles, which doesn't seem to really affect the position very much. So he gets his pawn back with queen b5 check. He's not actually losing a pawn. I don't think he has another option. I mean, castling, I could play castles queenside and just be up a pawn. Probably. Or maybe just some other solid move like queen b6 or something. So I don't think he should just cold sack a pawn. I mean, if he can win it back, he should. But perhaps I should be more materialistic. I'm not very materialistic. Guys, on Friday I'm leaving to play poker in Prague. I'm going to be playing some poker tournaments at the EPT Prague. Probably starting Saturday. I'm playing in Eureka. It's like $1,000 buy-in. Wish me luck. And we'll be back on December 20th. So you guys have my birthday presents ready. My birthday's the 19th of December. I'm 39. Forever. Queen d7. This is what I didn't see last time. When I was playing the game without any assistance from the computer or whatever, I guess I analyzed like something else for black. My bishop's on e7, white is castled. I was thinking this was just bad for black because of queen d7, queen takes b7, castles, rook d1, and white has a clear advantage. But this was what I didn't see. This move just totally salvages black's whole game. It forces him to trade queens and fix my pawn structure. And this is computer generated. But again, the difference of white like castling and bishop e7 doesn't actually really matter too much. Black's probably slightly better in ascending. Although white's structure is theoretically better than black. I have a center and I have a bishop. Maybe it's equal. I mean, I guess black's not really better. So that's forced. This is a comfortable ending. I mean, black has no questions about being worse. Maybe I'm not better, but I'm definitely not worse. So, as far as the opening goes, that's a good result for black. I mean, I'm playing a pretty risky setup with the Nimzovich, and equalizing in like 15 moves is probably a pretty respectable achievement against reasonable play. But I don't know, why everybody's playing this knight d2. I don't really get that. I mean, the normal thing to do is just play e5. That's kind of standard. I don't know why everybody who my other opponent was, also played knight d2. Now knight g3, heading for f5 in some lines. g6. We need to come up with the right plan here. I mean, g6 would really kill his knight. Where am I putting my king? Like g6, castles queenside, rook e1, bishop h6 check. Yeah, it looks okay. Anti-knight move. Putting another pawn on the right color. I'm intending to castle queenside, and we've got a lot of possibilities for the bishop. Bishop h6, bishop g7. But again, the pawn structure is a little better for white. I've got 3 pawn islands against 2. So I guess it's about equal. I'm not sure, though, about where to go with his knight last move. I don't know if knight g3 is better, or knight d2, or even knight c3. If knight c3 and maybe c6, it's at least equal for black. I wouldn't want to play Tony Miles. He was like an endgame genius, and this was the kind of position where he would just mow white down with his technique. And I mention him because he was fond of this variation with black. Every time I played him in banter games, I would just dread getting into any kind of endgame. It seemed like he would just trade pieces on purpose to try to reach slightly better endings. Just grind you down. This looks like a case in point. Black could get the advantage here pretty easily. The knight is badly placed. Alright, I don't know. Castles queenside seems like the most logical, bringing the rook to the center. King stays in the vicinity of the center while being fairly, sort of safe. This was, I guess, my main line, actually. Well, c3 I wasn't sure about. It turns out to be a pretty logical move for white, the c3. Now what? But I guess it's still objectively equal. Another pawn on the white square. The knight's pretty strong, though. And c5. c5's kind of risky. My pawns become... This is probably a draw. My pawns become really inflexible if I play c5. He's going knight f3 now. Got a good king. Yeah, now I'm not sure about this. This is where the technique comes into play. Black's a little bit better. Maybe not enough. The idea here is that I think the imbalancing in the pawn structure might favor my bishop rather than his knight a little bit. Maybe it's still a draw objectively. Black's slightly more active. When you're trying to win this type of ending, I mean, what you really want to do is get the other guy to make, slight concessions. A little concession here, a little concession there, and then, increase your advantage bit by bit. dropped a piece in panic mode. Alright. It's a little unpleasant. Alright, Crazy Hisitnuns Shryan Halligator. Amazing GM. Amazing GM, if we have time to play that game, I don't know that we're going to have enough time. But if we did, you would need to re-challenge me to like 8 minutes with a 3-second increment instead of the 10-0. I prefer to play with the increment. C6 was just a clear pawn up. What? What are you talking about? Oh, C6 is just a clear pawn up. Oh man, it's all because the king's still in the center. Wow. That's a great point, Neubauer. I didn't see it. Oh my god. C6 is just a clear pawn up. I was thinking about the other game from last week, and I didn't take in consideration I can play C6. This is hanging with check. So Neubauer is right. C6 is just a clear pawn up. I sort of made him go into this, though. He was listening to my commentary, and probably I made him assume that it was safe to play queen b5 check. And that's why Neubauer was like saying that he lost the pawn. But I didn't see it. I mean, I felt like I was the one who was like more behind the developments somehow, because I hadn't even played bishop e7 yet. But it's interesting. So it favors black. The difference in the position favors black. I had a game last week with castles and bishop e7. And this is slightly different. Alright. I was actually expecting a game with Sebe Attila yesterday where he might play g3 on move 1. So let's just pretend that Crazy is Sebe Attila. I was thinking about what to play. Although he might have played knight f3 as well. I wasn't sure. So this particular variation with bishop g2 right away. Very popular and solid is this Tory attack kind of formation. Not the most dynamic, but it's an easy recipe to follow if you want to try to get an equal position against the King's Indian attack. Yeah, I wouldn't have bothered with a check if you didn't say it would equalize. I know, I was like leading you on. Obviously, I didn't know what I was talking about. Knight h3. That's a good move to see. This is, as much as I like playing knight h6 and knight h3, I wouldn't risk it in a serious game. Knight h3 is inferior to better moves like maybe c4 or knight f3 here. So, well, we have options. I mean, I guess e4, e5. I have played a lot of games like this with white where I do crazy stuff. I played knight h3 on move 1 in a game in the Hungarian Team Championship a few years ago. I don't know, I was not a professional chess player at that time. I was just kind of horsing around. I managed to draw the game against another IM with knight h3. I actually did like knight h3 and sacked a pawn, like it was a Scandinavian reversed. It was totally insane. Somehow I hung on. Our team was not really competitive, and that's why I took a lot of liberties. I wouldn't do that in a team competition. If my team had a chance to like place in our division or something, I wouldn't do something stupid. When you play in a team championship or some kind of team format, you need to be like taking consideration the fact that you're playing like, you know, in a setting that your result like, you know, affects other people. So you can't just fool around. But in that year we had a really bad team and we had no chance, so I was doing crazy stuff. Alright, but anyway, he's playing like it's some kind of weird modern defense with knight h3. It's not that bad for white. Oftentimes it's played in the modern. You know, you do like f3 and knight back to f2. The rat reversed, basically. So, you know, if you wanted to try to go off and really try to punish white, I guess you could try to play h5 here. It looks a little coffee house. I've played c6 and then I'm playing h5. I mean, it's not really consistent. c6 is a pretty solid type of move, and then I'm going crazy with like h5 and doesn't seem right. So probably best is something consistently solid. It's a pretty modest setup for black, obviously. I'm going to castle, bring the rook to e8. He doesn't have any pressure on the on the e pawn with knight f3, so it doesn't really matter where I put my bishop. I don't really like the bishop on d6 that much. Typically, I was thinking about bishop c5 or. Okay, now this is very risky looking for white. We have a lot of good moves. e4 is fine. Obviously, bishop c5 check and knight g4 should be analyzed. But we can also take on h3. It's probably not that bad. I don't want to do that. I guess just e4. But perhaps white's position isn't so bad. It's really bizarre. But I'm a little overextended playing e4. I don't know what else to play. I don't want to take and bring his pieces in the game. Bishop c5 check was a little inconsistent. We can take on d3 at some point. Play a kind of... It looks like weird modern defense for white. It doesn't have a great game. A little bit backward along the e-file here. If he takes on e4, I take with the knight, and he doesn't want to give up his bishop for the knight on e4. This is the best move, maybe. He has problems with e3, but I think he can protect it. Knight g4, queen e1, or knight g4, knight b3. So I was planning on just taking on d3. We're giving up our center, though. How quickly can I get some counterplay going on here? Maybe knight a6 to c5. Looked interesting. I mean, white looks like he's got a reasonable idea to expand here, but he looks a little like overextended with a lot of weak squares, so I'm not sure it's quite sound, you know, this whole setup for white. Basically, my position is kind of like a c3 Sicilian. Very solid. Hoping white overextends himself at some point. You agree h5 looks nice later. Like in hindsight, you think I should have played h5? Well, his bishop is sort of dead, so it's not really an issue that I'm afraid of, that bishop becoming powerful. His knight protects f2. Do have knight g4 here. I feel like I need more ideas. Almost has some tactics. Almost doesn't count, right? Knight c5. Just gone for the central squares. He has a nice pawn chain, but that's all he has. It feels a little overextended for white, as I said. Now maybe knight f2 there. I certainly didn't really punish him. I didn't find a way to punish him. Though it does look a little overextended. Maybe it's not a severe problem. No tactics here. Knight d3. That's an aggressive move. Maybe asking too much for my position. Leaving his knight on e4. Very powerful. I have bishop f5. I feel like black's a tiny bit better, but I just don't see anything concrete. This is a very strong piece on e4, so I don't want it to remain. I analyze like knight to d6 here. I think that pawn gets overextended and lost. This move I missed. Doesn't mean it's good. It looks kind of dangerous. Bishop takes g5. Looks like white's a little overextended here. Ah, but he's gonna, what's he gonna do? Take with a pawn? Feels like black should have something. Maybe just knight d3. Maybe just take on e4, knight takes e4. You can trade queens, probably. How about queen b6? Maybe queen b6 is strong. So there were a lot of moves there. It's getting pretty complicated. I have a minute and a half left, but if he trades queens, I thought he was probably safe. Queen b6. Pretty concrete threats on this diagonal, and he doesn't have like bishop e3. King h1. Still white might be okay here. By all rights, white should be overextended in this position, but I don't see what I can do. Well, maybe I have bishop takes g5 at some point. At the right moment. I was thinking about bishop takes g5 right away. That was possible too. Now rook d8. I mean, knight takes e4. Bishop takes e4, bishop takes e4, knight takes e4, or even queen takes g4. It's this way I develop a piece with tempo. But this guy is like totally hanging on no matter what I do. Guys made fun of bishop knight h3 is not that bad, you know. It's not like white loses because he played knight h3. I mean, white is white and can afford to make like one weird move. I don't think his play is dubious. A little bit, you know, but white can afford to make a mistake or an inferior move, basically, and still have an okay position. Yeah, every move's been consistent since that point. White has made no errors since that knight h3. f4 kind of risky, but what are you gonna do? Maybe we found something tactically. Not really, though. Yeah, we have knight takes g5. Actually, I'm not sure. Knight takes g5, h6. Interesting. Complicated. Knight d3. Could be interesting. He's got 2 minutes to my 45 seconds. We have a subtle threat. I mean, bishop d3, queen takes g4. I wasn't really sure what I had there. Alright, bishop takes e4. Get everything on f2, overloading. But I'm like still not winning or something. He's got like a defense for everything. Maybe I can win a pawn. That's about all I'm going to win is a pawn. At the end of the day. We have rook d4, but I don't see what it does. All that work to win a pawn. But he's also pretty massively overextended. He's probably just losing for white. Maybe not so easy. I have a rook check first. Yeah, I have rook check first, getting the 7th with a massive advantage. He's overextended. You know, I've played enough of these positions, these King's Indian attack type positions with white, that you have to be very careful that this doesn't happen where your king just gets overextended. I was able to play efficiently without wasting time. Now he's got a mate on he's gonna have a mate on like h7. King g4. King g4. Play for mate. Guys, we've got half an hour left in the stream today. Queen a4. Well, I'm about to lose on time. He offered me a draw. Dude, I'm gonna take my chances. It is increment. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and play for the win. He's actually weakest in bullet, 1500. So I should have a better chance here than in any time control against Crazy. Just need to make sure I don't get mated on the back rank. H6, always useful. Oh no. I did it, I blundered a perp. Oh my god. Are you serious? You're 1500 in bullet and you saw that? Nice job, man. Jeez. That's not enough. Not enough. We have a rook to spare. I would think you were like 1900 in bullet, and that would be your strongest suit. Yeah, this is pretty tough. B6. Can't touch this. Oh, dude. Got the lever now. Oh man, we've got everything. A5. We've got A5 and H4. Lobster. Lobster-like pawns. Crazy doesn't want to resign. Alright guys, we've got time for 30 minutes more chess. So that was a fun game though. I thought he really got a perp on me, but then I was, wait a minute. It's not so easy. Hissidon Shryan, Halligator, Amazing GM didn't change this challenge. Tactizia, no time for a game for sure. So Hissidon's a 7-4. Calculated risk. Rook D8, it's very risky. You're welcome, Hissidon's. Let's play E4. We haven't played E4 today. Actually, I know, that's not true. I did. I had the Scandinavian game where I was white. Alright. So I always play the open Sicilian most of the time, like 95% of the time. That doesn't constitute always, but it's close enough. I have played the closed Sicilian on occasion. Some kind of weird Grand Prix attacks. But for the most part, I believe in playing the open Sicilian with white. Against the dragon, I don't have very up-to-date knowledge. I don't know how much Hissidnunc knows. But I'm afraid that my knowledge isn't that... I honestly don't really have a great line in mind, so I'm going to play quietly here. I'm not a big believer that the classical variation offers white a serious advantage, but it's not bad. And I think that a lot of players who are below master strength probably aren't that well prepared. Bishop G5 is a good line. I've played King H1 before. King H1, Bishop E6 or Bishop D7. I'm just trying to remember this. I haven't played this very much lately. King H1, Almadiaki. Facundo Pierrot played King H1 against me. I remember. I was black. This is a line, Bishop G5. Of course, there's like a lot of classical lines with Bishop E3. I don't really care for the Bishop E3. It's pretty analyzed to death. This is the most active move. No game for you. Are to come. That's you. You're FM Tactesian. Yeah, we only have time for this game and maybe 2 more at the most. Hissidance playing bishop e6. So I'm more often found probably with black in these positions. We don't have time for... Do we have time for king h1? Yeah, I guess there's nothing wrong with it. Maybe it's even main line, I can't remember. But I didn't want a discussion in Yugoslav attack because I'm basically playing with 10-year-old theory, and I would really, if I'm seriously going to play that with white, I need to know what I'm doing. I'm sure a lot of the theory in Yugoslav attack has changed in the last 10 years, so I didn't want to risk it here. Hissidance, I don't know how much he knows, but it might be more than me. I mean, generally when you're playing a lower rated player and you want to win, my experience has been that a lot of people can be well prepared in the opening regardless of their rating. So I take everyone seriously, and I think, you know, relying on technique is a safer approach than trying to challenge low rated players in the opening. They might be better prepared than you, so take care. Especially like little kids would be better to play you know, like non-theoretical lines. Now knight a5. Sometimes this is bad because of e5. But now in this particular situation, I don't think e5 works. If I play e5, he can play knight takes b3, pawn takes f6, pawn takes f6. So, like, if he had played h6, bishop h4, and then tried to do it, maybe e5 would be strong for me. Knight a5 looks good. Probably main line, but it's been a while. So now what? f4. f4. Rook c8. e5 definitely doesn't work, right? e5, knight takes b3, pawn takes f6. Well, I could take back. Actually, e5, knight takes b3, pawn takes. I could play something stupid like bishop takes f6. But I've got nothing there. e5, knight takes b3, pawn takes f6, bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, a takes b, and that position is probably slightly better for black. Right, I guess f4. I spent basically 3 minutes to play the main line. I guess like rook c8, bishop d3. I'm not sure. I even recall. This is not a variation I play very often, so I really have to think. Mayasaglat said, bishop g5 and f4 look strange. Not really. I mean, the idea is to support the center with like bishop f3, and you know, you also see this in like the Peerts. White plays bishop g5 followed by f4. It's a pretty standard sort of setup. Bishop c4 now. I mean, that's unprovoked. I would think rook c8, threatening exchange sacrifices with rook takes c3 would be sharper for black. Excuse me, guys. So I think objectively bishop f3 is the better square, but this is about controlling e4. It's about keeping the c4 square controlled under all circumstances. And white doesn't really have much of an advantage, but at the same time, no, I'm not sure that black has anything great. Now what? Queen f3. Knight takes b3. I guess queen f3 looks like a reasonable move. Now then bishop takes d3, pawn takes d3. Alright, I'm running out of time. Queen e2 is also possible. That seems strange to pin myself. I want to develop. Maybe I'm supposed to play like knight d2 or something there. Looks strange, but that might not be a bad move. Now obviously he can mess up my pawn structure in some lines. Knight takes b3, a takes b, bishop takes d3, c takes d. But we still have a strong center. I've played these positions for black, and I can tell you from my experience that it's not that easy to come up with a plan for black in these type of positions. Once you put the pieces where they're supposed to go, you get to this situation where you're like, okay, now what? You know, I guess theoretically black should try some kind of minority attack with the pawns on the queen side. This variation for white, it's a very positional line for strategic players. Objectively, theoretically, I don't think it offers white an advantage according to dragon theory. But there was a time when bishop g5 was considered to be slightly dangerous. I'm sure that the way Hissednos seems to have played it seems to be kind of standard, but I don't know about playing bishop c4 unprovoked. I mean, normally, like, I'm playing f5, and you're going bishop c4. It seems a bit weird for white, you know, for black to play it unprovoked, bishop c4 to me. Now, there's the minority attack I was talking about. Can I play knight takes b5? Doesn't look great. He's like breaking through. Rook d1. b4. For example, like b4 is coming. I have no idea what to do. I was hoping for some tactics, but I don't see it. Black seems okay here. b4. Now what do I do? Knight d5 or something? It looks stupid. If it looks stupid, it probably is stupid. I just drop a pawn on b2 if I do that. There's really no time for that. No time for knight d5. Knight takes d5, pawn takes d5, bishop takes b2. It's like black's making progress. I mean, as I said, the minority attack on the queen side. That's the plan. I'm down to 30 seconds. He's played this totally according to standard modern principles. I would have done something similar with black. It does look like the bishop on g5 is a bit strange with the pawn on f4, I understand, but I mean, generally we're normally playing f5 later on, freeing it up, and it helps to strengthen our attacking chances. are non-existent attacking chances on the king side. Not the greatest advertisement for this variation so far. Looks like black is at least equal. Time to chess. I don't get how you run out of time in the opening with your opening knowledge. Well, I don't play this line, so that's your answer. I mean, I've played this variation for white like twice in my life, probably. I normally play it for black. And I never was that comfortable against bishop g5, to be honest. My opening knowledge, I consider my opening to be probably the weakest part of my game. To be perfectly honest. Anyway, queen c7 looks like the best move. I'm not a theoretical player. It's a very good move, queen c7. Probably best. He's keeping the tension really well here. I honestly think my opening is probably the main reason I'm not a grandmaster. I mean, I just really don't have that deep theoretical knowledge that a lot of other players my own, strength otherwise have. I've been kind of lazy theoretically. I don't spend as much time studying openings as some other players my level. Maybe that's what I should be doing, but oftentimes I would get bad positions and save myself. I think one of my greatest strengths is my defensive ability, and that's happened in many cases because, like Karpov, you're used to getting bad positions. You learn to be a good defender. Karpov was trained by his teachers to wow, what am I doing after this? This is a really weak move, taking on g6. Why would he take that way, though? I don't know, you think like white should be taking, black should be taking the other way. Black's got very serious attacking chances. Queen f2 may have been a bad move. I guess queen g3. Trying to trade queens at least. Do I have something here? Eight seconds. The knights are just hanging on like a5 and b3. It's totally standard. What is going on? What is going on? I lost a pawn, if you guys are counting. Whoa, what is that? He dropped a piece? Maybe not. He didn't drop a piece. He didn't drop a piece. He did drop a piece. H6, I thought it wins back the piece, but it doesn't. That was complicated. I'm sure the Hissidness was clearly better. But at least it was entertaining. Thank you for a good game. Shryan will probably be the last game for today, guys. I'd like to play Alligator, but I have to stop at 12:30. Wow, Shryan, is that a mouse slip? I can't offer a take back. I guess he's serious. All right. If you're serious, all right. We actually worked on this very, very briefly with Roman, like trying to find a way to play against G4. It's actually something I actually discussed with Gingy. And I think we came up with this. This was our decision that like E5 and knight E7 was our favorite line. Funny game. 7 minutes is a bit short. Yeah, you had to have a really good game there. It looked like you played everything right. And even, well, I mean, I don't like my move F takes G right at the end, but you should take back with the H pawn. I don't understand why you took away from the center, slightly weakening like E6 and stuff, but even that probably wasn't a big error or something. Just it degenerated in time pressure. We needed more time to calculate. It was very complicated. But I think you had close to a clear advantage. Maybe a clear advantage for sure. G4. I think this is the easiest way for black to play. We try to punish the bishop on G2, and the H4 square is really weak. Occasionally, I would like sweat Gingy when he was playing. Quite often, I would sweat Gingy when he was playing blitz, like on ICC, and he would find these occasional opponents who would do this type of, and we decided this is just easy way for black to play. Nothing fancy, but the weaknesses look really significant. Maybe I should play knight h4 right away there. Maybe it's better. That's probably not necessary though. But just positional, like logic, should dictate how black plays this. If you play like G4, D5, C4, that's another weird line. Do you know what opening did both Carlsen and Karyakin use in most of their games of the World Championship 2016? Well, I didn't actually see every single game. I saw parts of most of them. It looked like a lot of Spanish. A few Gioco Pianissimos. Gioco Piano. Mostly classical openings, right? Nobody wants to take a risk, you know? That's the problem with the structure of this event. With so few games, both sides have to play ultra safe. There's no excitement because neither side wants to risk losing, so they play like the tightest, closest to the vest they can. And anyway, I mean, they're both relatively safe players, Carlsen especially. Karyakin sometimes plays sharply with white, and even with black if it's a weaker player, but yeah, they were mostly Spanish games. Otherwise known as the Roy Lopez. So H5 is possible. See any reason why not. Try to punish white for his indiscretion. I'm not committed to castling on either particular side in this type of position. Just playing for like a small positional advantage. This isn't really about like being a maniac and trying to attack like a caveman. This is a sort of just positional pawn break. We're just trying to separate this pawn from the herd, more or less. Take it down. Take it down later on. It's like a weak wildebeest on a nature program, and we'll try to get this guy maybe separated from the rest of the herd at some point later on. If you watch Animal Planet, you'll know what I'm talking about. So this is not a caveman attacking plan. This is pure strategic chess. This is last game for today, guys. We'll be back tomorrow 10 a.m. with more Blitz and Classical Chess. Wednesday and Thursday I'm streaming, and Friday I will be departing to play poker. So 3 more days of mornings of fun here. Alright, so he finally commits himself to some kind of structure in the center now. Bishop on g2 looks bad. f4 square is weak. But I'm not certain what the best route is for black. Pawn takes pawn is fine. No. Although pawn takes pawn, theoretically I'm trading this 3rd rank pawn for a 5th rank pawn. If I play pawn takes pawn, queen takes queen, knight takes queen, maybe white's not that bad off there. Can we keep the tension profitably for black? Bishop e6. Bishop e6 does look okay. Maybe I'm right. You know, it's right. I shouldn't exchange on e4 unless I have a good reason to. You know, you could also push d4, changing the pawn structure altogether. But in general, 90% of the time, keeping the tension is the best bet, especially when you have some kind of space advantage. Though here, this position is a little bit weird. He took on d5, so he's giving up his center. To try to strengthen his bishop on g2. Maybe he wants something with that. But you have to argue that both of these are good examples of giving up the tension. I was actually a little concerned about d4 here. But in that case, maybe I have like bishop to b4, something active. d4 was an interesting move. But now I'm not afraid of d4 any longer. I mean, if d4, I'm just pushing to e4. Some sort of advantage. Still, maybe d4 is his best move, I don't know. But I was concerned more about it last move. Karyakin was the only one trying to keep it safe all the time. Dude, they were both playing e4, e5 with black. I think that's trying to keep it safe. You know, if you want to play sharply, you could play something like the Alekine's defense or the Sicilian, you know. I mean, both players were playing relatively safe. Maybe Karyakin more so. I'm not a fan of either one. I'm not biased toward either one. I actually wanted to see Carlsen win, but I like Carlsen a little bit more than Karyakin, perhaps. But I think both are playing very stable, you know, keep it safe. But yeah, maybe Carlsen injected more risk into the games than Karyakin did. That's probably true. I think that is the consensus. But I mean, I think we're talking about a very small margin of risk, though. You know, he wasn't doing wild and crazy stuff. Playing a little more aggressively than Karyakin, true. But still, I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I mean, I consider both of their play to be pretty conservative overall. Compared to like the average grandmaster in a standard tournament or something, are taking many more risks than in this match. E4, E5 is very popular now, and I think there are several reasons. It's the objectively best move for black. It's also probably the safest move. As computers get better and better, it seems like E4, E5 is becoming more popular than ever. It seems like there's less margin for error as, well, I think in the world, players are just getting stronger. C2 looks a little weak. I think I have to decide about where to put my king sooner or later. I was talking about this pawn becoming a weakness. Can that happen? The Shrine's just in very bad time pressure already here. Yeah, you're referring mostly to game 8. Playing safe equals being a GM. No, I mean, there are way huge variances in the styles of various GMs. I mean, you're talking about night and day in a lot of cases. There are grandmasters who are relative maniacs, and there are others who are extremely, like, conservative. There's a huge variance in styles at every level. I mean, not just at amateur level. You know, I think I fall probably slightly on the more conservative side, but I don't play the most conservative openings. We can win a pawn? No. But I think I err on the conservative side as far as chess goes. Now we can win a pawn, finally. We separated one of the wildebeests from the herd. Unless he's got a tactic, like knight takes d5. Ooh, he has this, like bishop takes h3, knight takes d5. Appears valid. I mean, it still might be a good exchange for me, but instead of playing king b8, I should have played d4, just winning a pawn outright. But it's the last game. I'm getting a little bit drowsy. This is a little stronger than king b8. Central pawn majority, the theme of the day. Here we are again. Technically, I don't have a central pawn majority. He's got 1, 2, 3, and I have 1, 2, 3. But I do have the bigger center in terms of the literal center. We're ahead now. All right, so d4. It's not too late for d4. Knight d4. Knight d4 isn't bad either, but he has queen e3. Getting a little bit murky. Actually, knight d4 looks pretty strong. But then I'll have to deal with my pawn again. The pawn sniper. Can my queen get trapped? That's an awkward thing. You know what? Bishop takes h3, bishop takes h3, queen takes, knight g4. My queen is like stuck there. Probably getting trapped. Ugh. I don't like it. I don't like the look of that. That is not good. So we shift directions and think toward the other side. Queen d5. Start attacking. Start attacking white. Forcing weaknesses. Going for a direct kingside assault. A4, the lobster type of attack here. My king is over there though, so I don't know if I want to go crazy. Still. Building up. What's queen e1 about? Why did he play queen e1? Knight b4 check. We've got the in-between move. Rook takes c2 check. Then bishop takes b4. White's king is done. So, this is really brutal. Okay, thanks Ryan, and thanks everybody for tuning in today. The G4 or Grob. Nice to beat the Grob. It's very satisfying. On the internet, you don't care too much about the results so much as you may risk a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, right, there's less, you know, no prizes, right? So what's there? just ego is on the line on the internet. Anyway, guys, we'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. CET. Thanks for joining me. And we'll be here on time, so do so as well. Thanks for joining me. Check out YouTube videos, video chess training on YouTube. If you want to contact me for lessons or training or any kind of questions regarding the stream or suggestions, you can contact me with chess-related stuff at my email, videochesstrainer@gmail.com. That's it, man. Peace out. We'll see you guys later, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow. Bye-bye.